Good evening. Welcome to Live at the AUD. Normally when you tune in on a night like tonight, you hear some fabulous musicians. Well, tonight we're trying something different. This is a first trial of Odd Talks. And if you know anything about Eureka Springs, you know that Eureka Springs is this mystical, magical little place that has the ability to attract and keep very interesting and talented people from all around the world. And our guest tonight fits that description to a T. Let me tell you a little bit about Jim Fain. Jim entered the world of medicine and quickly became the chief of nuclear medical science at the Harbor UCLA Medical Center. He was 27 years old when he published his first scientific paper and has been published over 16 times since in the fields of medical research. After 20 years in that field, Jim decided it was time for a change. So he earned his PhD and became a Gestalt psychotherapist, Jim will correct us on that pronunciation, in West Hollywood and Beverly Hills. And if it weren't for ethics, I'm sure Jim could entertain us quite seriously with some stories. After that, Jim needed a real change of pace. So he moved to Eureka Springs, became a naturopath and an herbalist, and opened Fain's Herbacy on the upper loop of Spring Street in Eureka Springs. So I'm really pleased to introduce you to Mr. Jim Fain. Hi, Jim.
Hello there. I'm so glad to be here. I'm delighted, and it's an auspicious evening in a beautiful town, and so happy for us to be here since 1999 full-time, but introduced to this remarkable and magical, mystical place in about 1993. And couldn't imagine myself living anywhere else.
Good. It's perfect. We're glad you're here and hope you stay forever.
Thank you.
Let's start out talking about the new norm.
Yeah.
What exactly do you think, from your perspective, is our new norm right now?
Well, social change is happening very quickly, and it isn't something that we sought. It was imposed upon us. And you can see it everywhere you look. People wearing a mask. It's just a piece of paper or cloth, and yet it frightens people. How can that be? And it protects people, and how can that be frightening? And yet it is. We see social change occurring all around us, and most of that has to do with isolation, and then people being so close to the people that they're with that, frankly, they get a little tired of them. And what we're also seeing is drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and also the violence that goes hand in hand with that. And then there's not much that can be done because the courts are shut down. And then in terms of physical health follows emotional well-being. The old philosopher, Descartes, I believe it was, and by the way, you said Gestalt perfectly.
I did.
You did.
I never do.
Gestalt. You got to sound like you're going to conquer someplace. Gestalt. Yeah. We're not responsible for everything that happens to us. Things happen randomly but predictably, like this virus and this infection. It is random, but it's predictable.
So I'm hearing you kind of say, if I can summarize the way I interpreted it, we can't expect a normal.
No.
That we really have to expect the unexpected.
Yes.
And be willing to cope and to change.
Yes.
And that brings me to another question for you. There's so much that has happened. It hasn't just been COVID-19.
Right.
It's been what we've gone through with the election. It's been the invasion of the Capitol. It's been our ice storm and our snowstorm that we just recently went through. That's a whole lot to heap on people.
It is.
How do you tell people ways to cope with this and de-stress themselves? What are the best methods?
It's an excellent question, and it's one everybody's dealing with, and I would assert across the whole world. So we have a world in tension and at itself. What I think the only thing you can do is to reach out in any way you can, because we're social creatures. Reach out in any way you can that's safe to do. Get plenty of healthy exercise and walking in nature, and getting your hand in dirt. They don't call it grounding for nothing. and getting your hand in dirt and see that little bean pod start to grow and get hope and feel gratitude for those small things. In addition to that, really good food, cooking and delicious food is a good time to change your attitude around food and get away from the more poisonous foods. And then a good big belly laugh after a good night's sleep.
That always works.
It always works.
Yeah. How much, this may be a tough question to answer, but with your background, you're the one that could answer it. How much stress can humans take? How resilient are we really?
Oh, we're incredibly resilient. However, stress distorts our perception of events in our life. And then, depending upon what we do with that distortion of events, then we can either create more distress, and then people get into more trouble. And there are ways to mitigate that with natural products, including everything I just mentioned about a good night's sleep, a belly laugh, and walking in nature and grounding. But there's some nice nutritional natural products that are considered food products that'll just take some of that edge away. And I see that every day. I see that every day.
You fascinate me with your background coming from the nuclear science world to where you are now. How have you drawn on your experience to do what you're doing now and help people?
That's an excellent question. It's a very unusual explanation on my part to you about this, and I don't tell many people the story except to the whole world tonight. But
oh, go ahead.
Oh, what the heck, huh? I was in my group therapy room walking with a friend whose name is Don Laurencio. He's a Yaqui medicine man that I was tasked with attending to while a next door neighbor who was in the film industry had to go to a meeting. He wanted lunch to come and oversee something that was being filmed that was Yaqui Indian, which is, who knows what a Yaqui is? and he is. And a Yaqui is a subgroup of the Apache, but the Apache were deathly afraid of the Yaqui because of their medicine men. And so I had this guy in my group room, and I was walking with him over to my office to sit down and just chat. I didn't know him. And he looked at my philodendron, and he said, your plant misses you. And I looked at him like, my philodendron misses me? I water it every day. He says, yes, but you don't talk to it, and it doesn't talk to you. And I thought, well, that's true. I don't, and I don't know that it's ever said anything. So the next day, I made sure I walked over to water it, and I said hello. Now, the science guy, okay, I heard the philodendron say hello back.
Of course you did.
Yes, and Lynch then said that I was a plant spirit medicine person, and I'd never heard that before. That started me looking into natural products. Next step was there was a Russian Jewish herbal shop about a block away in West Hollywood where my private practice was at that point. I had moved from Beverly Hills to West Hollywood, and most of my clientele was in West Hollywood. And so I had a break of a couple of hours. I walked down, went through the funny smelling, odd smelling, kind of shotgun-looking store, and looked at all the brown paper bags and all the barrels of herbs, and there was this one old woman, just exactly stereotypically what you would think, behind the counter. And I said, well, what would be a good herb to learn about, especially with colds and flus? And she understood me, and she said, come. And she took me over and moved a ladder, put it right in front, and climbed all the way up, about 15 feet up, pulled down a bag, brought it over, gave it to me, and it was elderflower.
Yeah.
And elder has been my signature herb since that experience.
Yes.
And that's what got me into this. Now, the Gestalt view is perfectly supportive of that, because Gestalt philosophy and, curiously, quantum mechanics, they're the same philosophies, different words, same philosophies. And I was I was taught quantum mechanics because of nuclear medicine and statistical analysis. Didn't need the statistical analysis because in Gestalt, one of the idioms is the harder you try to make something change, the less likely it is that it will.
That force.
Because you don't see it anymore.
Right.
You don't see it anymore, and it's an entity.
Right.
The less hard you try for something to change, it will change naturally and normally and spontaneously. Isn't that interesting?
It is.
Yeah.
It is very interesting. And so what appeared to me is your S-curve career and life path really was the superhighway straight to where you wanted to be anyway.
It was a superhighway. That's a great way of putting it. I've not heard it that way, but that's exactly right. I've always had the really good fortune to be around fascinating and very bright people. And I've been guided well, and I wanted to learn from them, so they were always willing to teach me.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning, and there are a lot of bright people in Eureka Springs that, believe me, I still learn from.
And it's a stimulating place.
It
There's
is
no
a
question about
stimulating
it.
place.
Let me go back to stress for a little bit.
Sure.
How do you recommend people self-diagnose? Because a lot of people are depressed, but they don't know it, and they don't know how to recognize it, and so therefore they don't get any help.
Yeah.
What are some of the triggers, if you can identify in yourself?
Yeah, first there's healthy stress and unhealthy stress. Healthy stress really keeps you on your toes and gets you moving and gets you going. So if the stress is feeling burdensome to you, then it's a good time to think about talking to somebody. And if you can't do it face-to-face, at least do a Zoom. I don't like that because the personal contact is gone. You can't see their face. And the face is the window, the eyes and the mouth and the smile are the windows to the person's operating system or soul. And the other thing would be if you're, let's talk about depression. Stress, also called anxiety, almost always goes hand in hand with depression. It's rare to have one without the other, except for post-traumatic stress disorder. That's where either the depression is blocked or the anxiety is blocked. Usually it's the depression is blocked, but it's there. And but that takes a therapist to sort that out.
Yeah.
Now, some of the symptoms of depression depends upon the type of depression. What most people I see right now are going through is in the range of dysthymia, which means a wet blanket over their life. And it's so hard to do anything, and I just don't want to move. And if anybody tries to me to move, I'm going to bite their head off. See, and so there's an irritability, there's an anxiety.
You see a lot of that lately.
There's a lot of it. And then there's a suppression, and there's a deadening feeling and almost a despairing quality, often a despairing quality. And that's the most common one. Of course, then you've got the high highs and low lows.
Right.
And this point in time may be difficult for people who have high highs and low lows to actually engage in their high highs because there's no place to do it.
Right. Right.
And
You mentioned something to me that I thought was fascinating, in more reference to people who aren't aware of those types of symptoms or signs. What if I crave pasta?
It's a wonderful question, and very, very astute. Often there's a craving of kind of the bad carbs when a person's depressed. And there's actually a little bit of science. See, I get back to my science base here, and that the carbs actually do help produce some serotonin, which is what elevates a person. And it's not a good way to do it because you're putting on unnecessary weight, you're not feeding your body well, and it's going to drop away as soon as you stop eating the bad carbs. Right. Now, there are good carbs, primarily found in vegetables, and there are some carbs that people say are bad, like white rice, but if you parboil the white rice, all that starch gets washed away. See? So you end up with good carbs out of white rice.
So if you go on a jag eating chips and bad carbs and stuff like that, you might want to stop and think a little bit.
Yes.
And say,
Yes.
well, let me do a little self-check
Yeah.
and
So,
see it.
yeah, and let's underscore the word jag, because, everybody enjoys a treat.
Yeah.
It's just that if you have to have it and you can't stop it, and
Yeah,
you're
I
buying,
have to have a bag of Fritos every once in a while. I mean, a full bag of Fritos. But
don't
that
tell a
does me
soul-
for
don't
2
tell a
months.
soul, but I'll do I'll do pickle flavored potato chips.
Okay, well, you're a little weirder than I am, but
I
that's
know.
okay. That's
I've
all
been
right.
told that my whole life. So what?
What are the top 3 coping skills that you would recommend everybody use?
Well, first, acknowledging that this is a difficult time for everybody. The first thing you do is to acknowledge that, because that puts it in perspective and takes the onus off you. So the guilt isn't there that you're doing something wrong.
All right.
We're all dealing with it. And it isn't just the USA, it's the entire world that's dealing with it all at one time. And the substance we're standing on emotionally is changing out from under us almost on a daily basis. And that's hard to deal with. And so acknowledge it. And if you have somebody close you can talk to that will actually listen to you without giving needless advice. The worst.
Or feeling the same thing and saying you're not listening to me as much as...
Yeah, worst thing you can do is to give needless advice, because it's kind of like poo-pooing them. If only you did what I do, then you'd be out of this and you'd be better. And that's ridiculous. All human behavior is meaningful. When somebody comes to see me, and Robin has worked for me for a long time, and of course Jim Breslin is there Tuesday and Wednesday, but when they come into the store, they're not judged, they're asked. They're asked, how are you? What can we help you with? Where are you health-wise? Are you sleeping well? Are you eating? And what you find out is when you ask questions like, are you sleeping well? And they say, no, I'm not. Are you eating well? No, I'm not. Then you can assess for something like anxiety or depressiveness and help them.
Right.
And then you can talk about good foods that'll bring delight to them, that really helps the palate bring that, wow, yummy.
Yeah. What about kids? This is, I constantly think about kids going through what we're going through in their formative years, and how this, just wearing masks, social distance, and not being able to be with family.
Sure.
What do you say to them? How do you help them?
Well, first of all, we're not going to know the impact of this time period on our children for years.
Yeah.
We won't see it for years. A lot of the impact will be taken from how they see their parents react and respond. And I mean react and respond.
Right.
We're all going to react, but again, it's your response that makes the difference. And then there are supplements that are beneficial for children too, if the children are feeling unlistened to, unheard, and bored. We also have this thing about, again, human beings are social creatures. Not everybody has the same desire to be social, but we are social beings. And the children usually get their socialization through school and sports, and art class and shop class, and that's not happening. And it doesn't look like we're going to get back to where we were for a long time. In fact, the norm now is for distance learning to occur at least a third of the time in areas with good internet. Around here, I don't know about you, but my internet at my house is so slow. When I talked to my internet provider, he was shocked and he laughed when I told him my download speed. So this interferes with the growth of our children and our family members emotionally, and typically they will follow what their parents do. If their parents are fighting each other because of a lack of money, lack of opportunity, too much time at home, too much pressure, then that kind of snarling and fighting, and the kids watch it, and it registers.
Yep, and hopefully we're into a new phase of this with the vaccines,
Yes.
thank goodness.
Yes.
And as we do that, and we still stay vigilant, that a focus could be on safe social interaction.
Perfect.
And, in doing that and getting the kids out,
Perfect.
and that, and encouraging them to participate in arts and sports and things like that, that will help them a lot.
One more thing, and this is on the positive side. If it's acknowledged and felt, and if it's a tear that's shed, that means there's an acceptance and there's a place to move on.
Right.
But there's got to be a tear that's shed. Then there's an acceptance and you can move on. One thing that's fascinating is if you look at the world's climate and you look at Zoom meetings and you look at working at home, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. This is
I don't know. I had six Zoom meetings today, and I got to tell you,
it's tiring.
my eyes are crossed.
I don't like them myself. But think of not going in 5 days a week or more to a corporate setting in downtown LA or downtown, and think of how that changes things. It's huge.
It is huge, and I've experienced it, and a lot of people that I've talked to have experienced the same thing. Much more productive.
Much more.
You get a lot more done. You're more efficient. You'd think you'd be more distracted, but you're really not.
You're really not.
But I don't have kids, so.
Well, as people get used to it, as people get used to it, and who's to say that kids shouldn't be part and parcel of a Zoom meeting for business as long as they're moving through?
Yeah, well, that's happened, and
Sure, sure. And doesn't it bring a smile to your face, though?
It does, it does.
I watch interviews on television, and they're from home, and there's this one woman reporter that always has a cat. On her, you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Yeah, she has a cat on the pillow behind her, and I wait to see that cat now.
We create our own little, entertainment.
I think, therefore, I am.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Let's switch over to natural medicine and natural health a little bit on that. You're a little different naturopath, as we've already learned. But typically a naturopath is steeped in folk medicine.
Right.
Do you tap into that at all? You kind of alluded to a little bit of that with your plant, and I hope you're enjoying your conversations, but do you tap into that?
I could go off on a tangent on the conversations with the philodendron.
Well, don't do that tonight.
I have no idea why it has a Boston accent.
Okay.
As I said a little before, the philosophy and the belief system behind Gestalt and behind nuclear medicine, the science of nuclear medicine, they really run in parallel with each other. It's the same concepts, different words, like predictable randomness. And in chaos or change, there's always an organizing principle. And in nuclear medicine, that's true in nuclear medicine, it's true in Gestalt. And as things get out of hand, if you can get through it, it'll organize into a whole new way all on its own. The harder I try to make it change, the less likely it is it will. And that happens all the time in this world in 3D. I do deeply honor the old ways, and the old ways include much of what Don Laurencio Lynch taught me, and the old ways tie back into health and healing the way it was before synthetic medicine. Now let me tap into the philosophy around synthetic medicine and natural medicine, if you will.
Sure.
And it's my own words, and there's no creation by the human that's greater than the creation of the human. In other words, anything that's synthetic that's created by humans includes the flaws inherent in the human. Because we don't know any better. We don't know we're doing it. So things come up, and that's why there are trials, medical trials, to find out what shows up that wasn't expected. And I can tell you things do. Now, people ask me about the mRNA vaccine, and I can't find any harm in the mRNA vaccines. I can't. It's a new technology. It is got a little synthetic blurb in there, but I can't see how it would cause anything. But then that's my human limitation too.
That's honest.
Yeah, it's straight. It's straight, and that's how I do things. If you can't be authentic in life, then life loses a lot of its value.
That's what's always impressed me. I remember the first time I walked into Fain Servicing. It was almost like walking into my uncle's house. You know, I mean, I was greeted by you. You were there that day. And it was so easy to fall into a conversation. And it took me about 10 minutes to figure out you were assessing me. But when I figured that out, I thought, okay, maybe this guy knows what he's doing. And we had a chat, and you recommended some things, and they worked very efficiently. And I appreciated that, and I appreciated your style on how you do it. And I know Robin still does it, you know, when you're not there. When you approach people, when somebody walks in your store, typically, are there two types: people who come in and they know exactly what they want, and people who come in and they're kind of curious and exploring? And how do you deal with the one that's curious and exploring?
I love those people that are curious and exploring. That's a blank palette for me. And my artistry, and you know, Europe is full of artists. My artistry is the human palette.
Yeah.
And it's a great way of describing who I am. I love the curiosity. Where we get into difficulty sometimes, and it takes a lot of sometimes personal discipline. Somebody will come in and they say, well, I used a product from XYZ department store, and I followed the directions and it didn't work, and my doctor told me never do it again. I was wasting my money. And it's a big chasm to get across. First of all, the product was probably not a quality product. The second thing is, if they were doing the bottle directions, that isn't a therapeutic dose. That's a nutritional dietary dose. Legally, we can't make therapeutic claims, so they can't label the bottle for a therapeutic dosing. They have to label it for nutritional dosing. And then they come in with this idea that their doctor has affirmed that, you know, what we're doing is useless and just taking money. And I understand it. It hurts a little bit.
I bet it would. I bet it would.
Hurts a little bit.
But obviously, when, I don't know how many years ago it was, when the FDA wanted to regulate vitamin C because it was so effective and working, and that pushback, and it was like, you know, there must be something to it if the FDA wants money in it, you know? Is there a difference between a clinical trial and a medical trial?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'd like to show this right here. This is where I get my university medical information. And please write that down. You could just do a Google search for PubMed, P-U-B-M-E-D. And what you'll get is the National Library of Congress database of all of the published research papers, which is where my papers used to be. Now, it's too long ago probably to find mine. It's the nature of science. Today's science gets old within about a year because new science comes in and changes things. But if you go there and you put in the search bar Uncaria tomentosa, which is cat's claw, the doctors would say, well, it's never been studied, so don't use it. It's not safe, or something like that, or it's ineffective. But if you do that and you do that search, you'll get over 2,000 research studies on cat's claw. 2,000 studies. Now, they're not clinical studies. Because as soon as it's made into a clinical study and it passes, then it becomes categorized as a prescribed drug.
And we don't want that, do we?
Well, then it's no longer available in my store or any store. It's
And the
by
price goes up?
prescription only. Fish oil, that's happened to.
Yeah.
And there are still medical doctors that say fish oil isn't worth taking, but there's a whole slew of cardiologists that are absolutely entranced by its effectiveness. And what they don't look at is how much of the ingredients in the fish oil, or DHA or EPA, They look at total amount of fish oil, which is carrier oil, and then EPA, DHA. And if it's a low amount of EPA and DHA, it's not very useful. And so there's lots of ways to counter what they're saying, but if there are clinical studies, it's rare that they become over the counter any longer. There are some differences in that many universities in Europe, really prestigious universities in Europe, including Great Britain, including Canada, including Australia, including, believe it or not, Cuba. Cuba's got one of the best clinical research.
I bet.
Because everybody got stuck there and they couldn't leave.
Right.
So they couldn't treat anybody because there weren't many people to treat, so they didn't want to do research. And it's incredible, especially for anti-aging. But they all publish in PubMed. So you can see what the world is doing clinically with natural products. But as soon as it's proven in the United States, it's not available in a store any longer. A pharmacy, but not in a store.
We need to keep our supplements available.
Well, that's the benefit of having them kept as supplements. The drawback to it is that you have to know what you're buying, and then you have to have some sense of what the good dosage is.
And that's why I wanted to ask you, what are some of the most powerful supplements and natural medicines that you think people always should know about?
Okay, I brought them.
I knew that. That's why I kind of wanted to segue into Propville.
Yeah. And I brought more.
Can't wait for the yardstick.
I actually, for you people seeing this, I was asked to bring 3 and I couldn't. I ended up bringing 3, 4, 5, 6. So bear with me. The first one right here is, this is made for me. The private label is made by a company called Reliance Vitamin. And Reliance Vitamin is a top-notch, many patents, only the freshest and only products with what's called European standardization, which is a higher baseline than American standardization. And many products in the United States aren't even standardized. There's a hierarchy from the weakest, which is cut-sifted herbs, going up to tinctures, which are either vinegar or alcohol-based, going up to cut-sifted herb in a capsule, because you got a known amount in each capsule. And then you go up to American standardized, and American standardization is a mathematic formula for finding the one active ingredient that they believe is what makes the whole plant work. Now, that's good, but it's a little silly. Give you an example of CBD. Well, everybody knows about CBD these days. You can buy it at the gas station. But if CBD has no smell to it, you don't have what's called terpenes. So much of the benefit of the plant is missing. And the terpenes, there are so many of them, we don't even know what they do. But we do know certain terpenes take aches and pains away. And we used to eat them to get rid of our aches and pains. And that goes on that way. This is a private label product that I have made for me. And look, it's got my signature right on it, signature herb, the elderflower, it's got the zinc, it's got the vitamin C, and it's generally accepted in the vitamin D, and it's generally accepted by medical practitioners as a baseline product that people can take every day to help avoid COVID-19 illness. So medical doctors are accepting this type of product.
That's fabulous.
It
Yeah,
is.
They should.
Now, one thing that happens with selling of the product is that elder is often called an immune booster. In my opinion, it isn't an immune booster. You've seen all those little plugs sticking out of the round ball on the COVID guy. This actually causes those plugs to be non-functional. That's what elder does, in my understanding. So it's not an immune booster. But it just keeps it from replicating. And it's pretty cool. This product is called saffron extract. And the saffron extract isn't the expensive herb, which is the little, I think it's called the stamen of the saffron plant, of the flower. And that's what causes saffron rice to be yellow. And it's got a nice flavor. If you're a cook, it's wonderful to make saffron rice. It's so simple. Add a little bit of poached chicken in it, and you've got a meal for a king or a queen. The saffron is from the herb, and saffron has a lot of value to it. Look it up on PubMed. It actually is one of the highest antioxidant products we know of. A comparison for saffron to wild blueberries, which has always been considered to be the highest, is that it's called an ARC value. The ARC value is about 14 with wild blueberries, and with saffron it's about 27. And it's more than twice the antioxidant value. It's terrific for eyesight. It raises mood a little bit, which is really good right now. And it has a lot of other benefits too. It does bring up a little energy levels. After all, if you're depressed, your energy's low, and it'll bring that back up. And of course, if there are, since it's very high in antioxidants, antioxidants are known to neutralize cancer cells. I can't make that claim because it's a food, it's not a medicine. But look up antioxidants and cancer online and you'll see what I'm saying. The next product is something that's very, very ordinary and mundane, but this is a probiotic. Now, a probiotic is a product that's full of good bacteria. That's all it is. And it's got a little bit of Miracle-Gro in it called FOS. And if it didn't have the FOS in it, it wouldn't grow so well, just like putting Miracle-Gro on my philodendron. Okay. And what I need to watch for with the purchase of this kind of a product is to make sure it says that it's enteric coated, which means it breaks down in the small bowel, or alternatively it would say coated to withstand stomach acid. What's one of the purposes of stomach acid? It's to kill bacteria in the food. And that's bacteria in the food. So if it's not made to withstand stomach acid, by the time it moves to small bowel, there's just a pittance left. Now, is it still beneficial? Yes, but you're not getting the full value. The next product is an unusual product, and it's called pycnogenol.
Say it again?
Pycnogenol. Lots of medical studies on this one, not clinical, but medical studies. And the pycnogenol is derived from something called maritime pine bark. There's no pine in it. Pycnogenol is just derived from it. So don't worry about allergies to pine and pollen and that kind of thing that we got, the yellow-green haze twice a year. That's not what this is. It's derived from it. And pycnogenol balances, I don't like that term, and I like the term immunomodulate the immune system. So it takes the wham, bam, pow away from it causing the immune system attacking your own body and causing any kind of autoimmune disorder. It really reduces that. Seborrhea, psoriasis, eczema, along with vitamin D, often you just see it fade away permanently over a period of months. Now, it's also good for, it's proven good on PubMed for reducing coronary artery disease in people. And this is just a long list again. So go to PubMed and look it up as a supplement that is a food product. And not for treating disease, but you'll see what this food product is good for. Now, let me put that in perspective. Everybody heard that eating calf's liver was good for iron-poor blood. I mean, all of our, I won't, but all of my parents and grandparents, what they were using was food as a medicine.
Right. That goes back to some of the old folklore.
It does. Yeah. Monolorn, everybody who knows me knows that I'm a fan of Monolorn. And Monolorn is derived from coconut. It's not coconut, it's derived from coconut. It really is a single ester of lauric acid. And it acts like a Trojan horse in our bodies for any lipid encapsulated or enveloped viruses. And the virus has to draw in from our bodies the fat to keep its encapsulation intact. It sees that and determines, I need to draw this in. It's a Trojan horse, comes in, punctures a hole, and the thing disintegrates. And guess what? COVID-19, the ailment with the novel coronavirus, all coronaviruses are lipid enveloped. So fill in the blanks. Okay. And the final one that I brought, this one takes a little more explanation. I'll be as quick as I can, but this goes really well with the Monolorn, especially with COVID, and it's NAC 600. NAC is shortened N-acetylcysteine, and 600 is how many milligrams in each capsule. This particular one is a private label, and I have it made for me, enhanced with just a touch of selenium, because there are research papers on PubMed that show the combination of selenium and N-acetylcysteine, or reduced glutathione is what they talk about, actually acts as a barrier to viral infections. Now, a barrier, if you think about Hadrian's Wall in England, in Britain, the Emperor Hadrian, the Roman Emperor, built this huge wall to keep those dreaded Scots from coming down and ransacking the castles of the aristocrats. And so they put in all that money into that wall, and the dreaded Scots figured out, well, we'll just go around.
Let's take the easy way out of this.
Yeah, we'll just go around.
Yeah, we can go around it.
It'll take a little longer, but we don't have to go over the wall. And so no barrier is going to be the be-all, end-all, but you can sure slow it down. Yeah. And the other thing about N-acetylcysteine is it keeps lung fluids from getting sticky. It helps thin mucus, and it also helps clear the liver, but through a process of the liver converting the N-acetyl to glutathione. And glutathione is
I wish
natural.
you guys spoke English.
Glutathione is natural in our systems. It's just that it fluxes up and down all day long. And so all we're doing is helping the body reduce its flux and flow. But, you can always talk to me, and you don't have to buy anything.
That's another good thing about you. You're educational, but you always do wind up buying something, I can tell you that.
They're good. They're good products.
Yeah, they are good products.
Yeah.
Are there supplements, now that you've told us the ones that everybody should know about, are there any that they should know to stay away from?
Yeah, there are two that I am really uncomfortable with. One is illegal in Arkansas, but you can buy it in Missouri, but I don't recommend it, and it's called Kraton. And that's an herbal product, and you can find it in gas stations, but not in Arkansas. Arkansas, again, it's illegal, and I support that. Kraton has a lot of unique values to it, but it's so easily misused because it can cause extreme heart rate changes, and it can cause just falling over and stumbling without realizing it. And it can just do a lot of harm if you take too much. And why I don't carry it is that human beings, we like our pleasures. And Kraton makes you feel pretty good, so I want more of it. And
addictive.
Yeah, and it's.
And what is its supposed purpose? I mean, is it supposed to make you high?
People.
Oh, it calms people with a rapid heartbeat. That makes sense.
It depends upon the amount you use.
Yeah.
And and most people aren't going to, watch how much they use. The old thing, more is better. And it isn't. It's dangerous. The other product, believe it or not, is an antidepressant called SAM-E. Now, it's an effective antidepressant from what I've observed. And if you look on PubMed, it'll say that. The catch to it is that it brings energy levels up in people who are depressed. And when that happens to a person who's bipolar, it puts them right into a polar spin. And that's a miserable place to be, and so I don't even stock that. I've got 5-HTP, which is an amino acid that is totally safe to use if a person chooses to use a food to handle their mood.
Right.
Oh, food and mood.
Food and mood.
Food and
Good,
mood.
good.
Yeah,
Sounds
yeah.
like a song title.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You're going to have to do that for the AUD. Get
Yeah,
somebody right.
Food and mood.
and
Okay.
mood.
Right, and a little mixology on the side.
There, yeah.
on
Oh,
that.
now you're talking.
Yeah.
The one thing I say with these is that the only way you can hurt yourself with some of these is if you wash it down with too much vodka.
Yeah, right. Well, that's true with anything, though. You do that. And if you have too much vodka and pasta, you're really in trouble.
You're really
stressed
in
out,
trouble.
And you need to go to Fain's Pharmacy on this. I could sit here and talk to you for another 3 nights.
Well, I enjoy people that are curious.
Well, I think your business thrives and survives on people who are curious and who also are lifelong learners. And I know you're a lifelong learner.
Lifelong.
Which is one of the things that, because I always learn from you every time, and I know that your customers, and I know you have long-time customers. And
20 years at this point.
Yeah. And do a lot online with people who have come out and gotten hooked on your stuff. No pun intended with the hooked.
A good
with
hook.
that. Yeah, right,
yeah.
right. Before we wrap up, I have to say, why did you bring a yardstick?
Well,
Do I want to know?
well, okay. I brought a clock too.
Oh, okay, I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's time. See how crazy that is? That's not threatening. Distance and shielding. See, there's nothing threatening. It's a clock, it's a paper mask, and it's a yardstick. That's how you protect yourself. It's so simple.
It is so simple. And thank you for making our new norm and natural medicine simple for all of us too. Greatly appreciate your time and your experience, and I just like your style and your attitude and your personality because it really is trying to help somebody.
Yeah.
It's not trying to sell them anything ever.
No.
And I appreciate that. I hope you enjoyed tonight. I certainly did.
I had a great time.
Super.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming. And thank you all for being with us. And we hope you enjoyed it. We hope you learned. And we hope to get to do this again. Thank you very much and good night.